Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. I have a fascinating guest today. Dr. Audrey Levy is a psychotherapist, if I'm going to get this right. And, the listeners, I mess this stuff up. And I always say the show notes give you all of Dr. Audrey Levy's information. But Dr. Audrey Levy came across my radar through a colleague of ours because she's an avid writer. She is in the process. She's writing 4 books. 2 have already been released as bestsellers. She has converted books to screenplays and made it to the Spielberg writing competition as a finalist. Several of these books, this is actually a compilation of her life story, which is absolutely fascinating and is being pitched to studios like Netflix and Lifetime, and things are really moving. So Audrey, thank you so much for taking some time, and out of a crazy hectic schedule, you run your own practice, your business. You're an avid writer and really a mover and shaker in this world. So thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for that introduction. That was amazing.
Yeah, I think we both want to meet her.
Yes.
So,
the imposter syndrome.
100%. We women feel that so often. So tell me how this journey got started. I mean, I'm just starting on my 3rd book, and I will tell you, I swore I was never going to write my first. And every time I say, "Oh my God, I'm going to do this again," why? Yet you show up with this passion around this. So give us a little background of how this journey got started for you.
Well, first of all, they actually started as screenplays, and I turned them into books. So it was the reverse for me. And I loved writing screenplays. I wrote a dozen of them in 7 years. And I wrote so many because my dad, when I was younger, he used to say to me that you're going to get rejected over and over and over again. And one day they're going to discover you and you're going to have a closet full of gold. So just keep writing no matter what. And that's
a piece of advice.
Yes, it really was a very good piece of advice. And so I had a run. I went on a run and I wrote 12 screenplays in 7 years. And then I stopped. It's very hard to hit your head against a brick wall over and over and over and over again. And life happens, stuff happens. And I stopped after that. And early on, when I first started, my significant other, Dr. James Spencer, who's was very smart, and he said to me that if I wanted the movies to find me, I needed to write a bestseller. And I said, "Oh, well, that's not exactly easy. You just don't snap your fingers and suddenly you have a bestseller." And that was I started writing in 1984. So it never occurred to me that I could sit down and write a bestseller for real. I mean, that just seemed, like a fantasy. And
it's that imposter syndrome. Other people do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, how could I just sit down and write a bestseller? But I could take screenplay classes. So you can't take a class in how to write a bestseller, but you can take a class in how to write a screenplay or how to write a novel or how to write a poem. And I came to California to write movies, to make movies. So in 1984, I took my first class, how to write a screenplay. And then I just kept going for the next dozen years or so. And I got wonderful feedback, and I was a finalist in Mr. Spielberg's contest, and I was a finalist in at Sundance. And
wow.
Yes, and I had, just like my dad said, a closet full of rejection letters, but also a closet full of gold, depending upon your perspective. So there you have it. And then in 2019, my life circumstances changed, where I decided that perhaps if I turned these screenplays into books, that they could become bestsellers, because I had been reading about marketing firms and advertising firms who had figured out the algorithm of Amazon
Right.
and the Wall Street Journal and New York Times and the USA Today. And it's a question of how much money you have, and they know how to make it a bestseller. And that was just a phenomenon to me that I thought, I want to be a part of that. And so I turned my screenplays into novels. They're short novels, so they're called novellas. And if you read them and think about a movie as you read them, it takes less than 2 hours to read them, and you have a movie experience. So I thought if I had a best-selling series, that people would pay more attention than if I just had one bestseller.
Makes sense.
And so I figured out a way to tie my screenplays together, where under the umbrella of the adventures of the angel Olio. And Olio is an angel that came to me in 2008 when I wrote the first book. And I just started talking to her in my head, and suddenly there were 4 books that could use Olio. You know, do you remember the series Touched by an Angel with Della Reese? And in any event, each episode, you know, in the beginning teaser, they would have an angel conference and talk about the family that they were going to work with. And then the rest of the show was them coming into the lives of a particular family for a particular reason. There was a happy ending. And at the end, there is a little epilogue where the angels have another conversation.
Which makes you want to pick up or watch the next one.
Exactly. So, and I love that show. And people say, well, do you believe in angels? And I say, I want to believe in angels with all my heart. I want to believe in angels with all my heart. And when I say that, I get goosebumps and I get tearful, and it touches me. So in 2008, I was in therapy. I had a very bad decade. Both my parents passed away. My significant other passed away, Dr. Spencer, and my niece passed from cancer, and I lost my dog. I mean, it was just a really rough decade.
It was a rough decade.
Yes. And so I was in therapy, and my therapist said, you know, why don't you write down what happened? Because it's a good story. And it'll be a good way for you to purge what's inside you. So I realized that I could have these conversations, if you will, with angels, writing down conversations with angels. And it became a book. And I was able to take my screenplays, which are autobiographical fiction. I mean, they're based on my life. That's why I was able to write a dozen of them, because they say write what you know. So I just picked different episodes of my life and changed the names and added a few plot twists, and they all have happy endings. And because I have a doctorate in psychology, I was taught about how to rewrite your life script. So
you truly took a hybrid approach. You took your profession, your career background, your life, and your life. One of your lifelong goals was to be a writer, you know, for the movies, and you have brought it all together, you know, into a complete circle.
Yes, and now I'm waiting for the movies to find me, and I'm making each book into a bestseller so that I'll have a bestseller series. So there's 2 down and 2 to go.
And, you know, I'm going to challenge you a little bit here, because as I've gotten to know you, I don't think you're a woman who just sits back and waits for the movies to find her.
Well, I purchased a production package where you essentially buy time with a producer, and that producer helps you create your project. And
Mhm.
then that producer who has the network goes and pitches your story to Lifetime, Netflix, etc. So all these years, you always had to look for a producer and look for an agent and look for these people. And they all had this gate in front of them that you had to get through in order to talk to them. And they used to say that an agent who you had to pay was not ahead of time, okay? That you shouldn't do that, that you should wait and find an agent who will take you on for commission and believes in you and da 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 da. Well, I've had 4 agents. And I had one entertainment attorney who was with me until he passed away. And none of those agents ever succeeded in one of my screenplays being bought, much less made. So this time around, I'm sort of in my own chapter 3. Like
So what I'm hearing is you're making things happen on your time, on your way at this point. You're done with, following everybody else's lead, and you're leading your own charge.
right. I
So,
believe that that's what I'm doing.
so let me ask you, so what have been some of the, greatest successes you have enjoyed at this point? I mean, you're a doctor of psychology. You have met. Not many people can say their books have been endorsed by Jay Leno. What have been some of your greatest successes, and what has led to them for you?
I think I would really have to say that when I wrote my first book, I was really, really proud of that. And that was in 2008. And then on the strength of that, I went and got my doctorate. And that was very, very important. And both of those things, I think, were really the highlights. Right now, the one I'm looking forward to is being found by the movies. And if that happens before I die, then I'm in good shape.
I always have to ask this, because I always find it interesting. The most impactful or unusual, exciting relationship that changed your life in your journey?
Gosh, there were just more than one. Okay. It's really hard to narrow it down to one.
Feel free to share more than one, but let's start with one of.
Okay. So the man that I lived with for 20 years, that's got to be the major impact. And he died 23 years ago, and I haven't been in love since.
Oh.
So being in love to me is one of the best things to be. That's like the best fun when, that's the best fun. And all through high school or college or whatever, if I ever had a crush on someone and I thought they had a crush on me, that was like the best day. So we had it turns out that he was an alcoholic, which I didn't know when I first met him. I did smell alcohol on him, and I mentioned that to my mentor at the time, who's the second man that was very impactful in my life, Dr. Gene Landy. So we got Dr. James Spencer and Dr. Gene Landy, who are both angels now, if one believes in angels. And as I said, I would like to. So they helped me write my book. I had conversations with them that I wrote in my mind, and I typed them out. And then when you read them back, to me, it's fascinating. And the people who've read it cry and laugh and call me, and it's amazing. So those two men were very important. My mentor, Gene, and he was a psychologist, and he is how I met my Jimmy, Dr. James Spencer. And as I said, they're both angels now. So there you go.
So what piece of advice would you share for other women who want to pursue a dream, they have that idea, they want to do something that might be unusual, different, off the beaten path, saying, oh, you could never write a bestseller, you could never write, what tip or advice would you give to women?
I gave this question a lot of thought, and the first thing that I thought of was that it's advice for everybody, not just women. I'm uncomfortable, especially when people say, most men are jerks, or, most women don't do this. And it really drives me crazy, because both genders do both things. And so my advice would be to everybody, not just to women. And to the women, I would say, stop thinking of yourself as a woman and start thinking of yourself as a person, and stop being prejudiced about, quote, men or Black people or Jewish people or gay people. Stop making those segments in your head and just start thinking of yourself as a person, and that we're all people. And so I do mirror exercises. There's 4 things that I tell all of my patients to do. Okay. First is physical exercise, really important. Second is meditation. And third is a feelings journal, a journal where you can write down your feelings and you can have your conversations with your angels. And the 4th thing is positive affirmations, preferably in front of a mirror. But if you don't have a mirror, just do them in your head. And my affirmations that I give everybody to say is, I'm okay. I can take care of myself no matter what. And I am enough.
Well said, really well said there. And I love the I love I am statements. I actually just recently put something up on social media about a sign that I saw, that I just took a picture from, of, that says, something, I can and I will. And I have used that for myself. I've given that to family members who are having some health challenges, and for help them through major situations. And I think there's a huge power of taking that pause and meditating. I think there's a huge power of movement of the body. Spoken as a former dancer, I think our bodies thrive on movement. We are not meant to be sedentary. I think creativity comes through us when we move. And I think positive statements of belief are vitally important, because we all have moments of uncertainty, and moving through those moments to actions. And through those actions are so many beautiful successes.
And it's the actions. That was what my mentor taught me. My mentor taught me to take an action. That when I was in that feeling space, I could acknowledge the feeling that I was having, and I could move it aside and take an action. Whatever that action might be, hopefully not bad for you.
Yeah. No, I love it, Dr. Audrey. And thank you so much for joining me here today on Her Success Story.
My pleasure. That was amazing. Thank you.
Listeners, remember to leave a comment below on what part of today's interview was most impactful to you, and based on that, what is the action you are going to be taking in your world? Also, remember to hit subscribe. We come into your podcast app and your inbox every Monday morning with fresh content and interviews. And I look forward to learning more about you and the impact you will be making in the world. Thank you again for joining us today on Her Success Story.